Hello, and welcome to How to Be a Change Agent in Tech. We are so excited to be here. My name is Samantha, and I will be the moderator for today's session. And before we get started, we have a couple of reminders for everyone. We have some amazing prizes up for grabs this year. The more points you earn, the better the prizes. We're giving out BGC swag, and 12 lucky winners will be chosen between an iPad Air, Surface Pro 8, Dell Touch laptop. You want to make sure that you get this in this raffle so you can collect those points and have an opportunity to win some really cool prizes. You can enter codes in the gamification tab on the left to collect your points and see the prizes. You can earn up to 100 points each session. We're dropping codes at the beginning and the end of the session. We're sprinkling them in the speaker bios, at the photo booth, and on the surveys. Surveys are worth more points because we really value your feedback, and we want to create amazing, relevant programs for you guys in the future. So please take 3 minutes at the end and complete them. Grab the paper and pen where you can write 4 codes for the session or whatever device you want to make note on. After the session, enter all 4 in the gamification tab. The first code for this session, so it's coming up right now, the first code, disrupt. Because that's the goal here. Don't forget the hashtag disrupt. All sessions are being recorded and will be available on the alumni portal following the conference. If you experience any technical issues during the session, please click tech support. And it's at the bottom left corner, so let us know if you have any issues. For the best viewing experience, we suggest using Google Chrome or Microsoft Edge as your browser. And now it's my pleasure to introduce you to the speakers. As I said, I'm Samantha, but we have Joanne Hill, Leah Castleberry, and Dr. Patrice Johnson here. So let's get started. So let's talk about the journey and the vision. So this conversation is grounded in our vision of radical change in tech. So we're going to start with giving you the opportunity to learn about our panel. So to the panel, tell us about your journey. Why tech? What made you choose the roles that you got into? And what was guiding you in your journey to tech and through tech?
I guess I'm gonna go first.
Yes, thank you.
I will break the ice, Samantha. So I am Dr. Patrice, and I work with the amazing, wonderful organization that is hosting this summit, Black Girls Code. I serve as the Chief Programs Officer for Black Girls Code, and this is my first role squarely in the tech industry. And the only reason why I chose to come to Black Girls Code was because it is not like any other tech organization. Its sole purpose is not just to center Black girls in their genius, but it is an organization that seeks to disrupt. So I was not necessarily interested in tech before BGC. What piqued my interest was that tech was just one of the tools used to talk about disruptive innovations utilizing tech and looking at centering social inequity and considering what it looks like to liberate Black girls and what that looks like to liberate everybody. So that is one of the reasons why I took this path. Even the name, our name, Black Girls Code, is disruptive. It's disruptive. If you look at our founding and our history, we were challenged on that name. Why Black Girls Code, right? There's something different to say, I'm gonna center Black girls. In what other space do we unapologetically center Black girls? And so tech was just the icing on the cake for me, but understanding that technology as an industry has always been here. We're going back to the way we got our electricity, right? Like these inventions and how we plug up our phones and how we, iron our clothes and the way that you get stoplights, all of that is technology. But in this day and age, I think technology is shifting us in a way that we can use it as a tool to change the way race and gender and class are experienced in our country. So I think that that's, to answer your question, Samantha, to be the brave first person to go, because now I'm going to tease Leah and Joanne. That is why I've chosen this work.
That is wonderful. That's wonderful. Let's
Okay.
keep the
I'm happy
conversation
to
going.
jump in.
Oh, okay, go.
Sorry, Joanne. Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you, Samantha, for this great introduction. And thank you to the Black Girls Code organization for having us for the Alumni Summit. So much of my career up to this point has been at the intersection of business, technology, and policy. So I studied international business at Howard University for undergrad. And I'm very much and have always been very passionate about history, culture, and people. And so as I approached my journey in studying business, I didn't necessarily want to just go the corporate route, but wanted to do something that had more meaning and impact in my day-to-day work. So I did different opportunities, fellowship programs, internship programs that allowed me to explore those other areas, like the PPIA, Public Policy and International Affairs Fellowship at Carnegie Mellon University, which was my first introduction to tech policy. I interned at the State Department, but ultimately I ended up going the corporate route, and I started my career as a business consultant at IBM, Global Business Services. And at that time, they were really building out the Watson division, the artificial intelligence division, as a solution for IBM's other corporate clients. And I joined that team and I began studying. I was immediately so intrigued by Watson and by AI and the potential that it had. But because of the lens that I see through the world as a Black woman and my lived experience, I had a lot of questions about what we were doing to make sure that we were centering different types of lived experiences, different cultures. My international business background tapped in there, and I started asking those questions. And I decided to go back to school. I went to grad school at the University of Chicago Harris School of Public Policy because I thought public policy might be a way that we can address some of these questions. So a lot of what I did there centered on public policy and the question of how, in a radical way, in a disruptive way, how can we think about innovative technologies and an opportunity to dismantle as opposed to perpetuate systematic oppression. So how can we think about not just making things equitable, but tearing down historical barriers that have existed for different people? Currently, I am back in the private sector and really thinking about products. So how do we really center those experiences in the ways that different people from different communities, different experiences engage with both hardware and software products?
That is wonderful, wonderful.
Great. All right. And so as Patrice said, she kicked it off. So I'm ending it with the introduction, but that is so appropriate because she mentioned definitely dived into innovation. And I work for IBM. We're one of the most innovative companies. And Leah, I did not realize, also. So this is really great. I actually attended an HBCU. I got my computer science degree from Mississippi Valley State University. So my journey actually started, I'd say, pretty much college. My first semester, I chose accounting as my major, but then after the first semester, I switched to computer science. So my journey has been long in tech. I pretty much started with computer science, and then I interned with IBM the summer before I graduated, and I've been with IBM. So I'm still with IBM. And I know, but with that, I've been in so many different roles because it has afforded me the opportunity to. I worked in global services, which is consulting now. I started in hardware in upstate New York. So that was my initial introduction as a programmer. And then a few years into that, I wanted to also just maybe get a little bit closer to the customers just to see how the technology was working. So I started or was able to do a shadow somewhat of a systems engineer at the time. And that was a way of me being able to continue my technology, expertise and experience, along with working with clients and becoming client facing. And so I've been project management, product management, technology manager, just ran the gamut. IBM also has supported me. I eventually also got my master's in software engineering and in my master's certificate in project management. So I continue to learn, and that's one thing that I would love the Black Girls Alumni to understand: constant learning. When we talk about innovation, you have to keep learning and seeing what's happening, in the world. And just to finish up, as far as where I'm working now, it's a really cool initiative is within IBM called Call for Code. And that is a way of, I work with clients, and then there are students involved where we invite developers and problem solvers on a global scale to work on solutions, somewhat in a hackathon fashion, a competition, but working on real world problems, working on solutions to real world problems, because we don't want to just identify problems. We want to work on solutions to problems. So, so very glad to be here. I can't speak for IBM, but very, very much, big proponent, and there are a lot of opportunities, and we have a lot of technology, AI, as Leah mentioned. So yes, a lot of technology in order to disrupt. Thank you.
So I would say, Samantha, just to shout out to IBM. IBM's team is with our team in South Africa as we speak, bringing back our South Africa chapter. So I appreciate IBM as well, Joanne.
Yes.
So we're here in the US doing this, but we got a team in South Africa teaching about 55 girls in Johannesburg right now with IBM. So we appreciate you.
Yes, shout out to Yolanda Rayburn, who's really, really pulling that together. So thank you.
I saw the photos on social this morning. They were beautiful. I'm so excited for those students and their experience. On to the next question. Thank you so much for telling us about yourselves and connecting these dots. But we want to talk about the tech ecosystem as an interconnected and independent pipeline of entities such as K through 12 education, post-secondary tech pathways, the workforce, and entrepreneurship / venture capital. Within your field in the tech ecosystem, what does an inclusive and equitable future look like to you? What steps are you taking in your role career to build towards this vision? And I want to start with Leah.
Sure, I'm happy to kick it off. What does an inclusive and equitable tech future look like for me? I think we are, and people that I work with are really working towards how do we mitigate proactively as opposed to reactively when it comes to building the technological future in an inclusive way. So how do we make sure that on the front end, and as I'm sure many folks in this room know, it is so much easier to build something proactively and address it as opposed to going back and fixing something, particularly in the product space, retroactively once it's already been done. We know that, hardware product roadmaps, for example, can be 5 years, 6 years or longer. Software is a little bit easier, but when it comes to trying to address ensuring that everyone has an inclusive experience, we have to make sure we're asking the right questions and taking the extra time that it takes to address those things in mind. So how are we thinking about all of the possible users who will come in contact with this product, right? How do people who are differently abled engage with products? How do people with big hair wear VR glasses, right? How do we think about these things to make sure that everyone is having an inclusive and equitable experience? We know that also in the regulatory space, we do anticipate that there will be some government regulation that will require big tech to address these things, but we know that may be some time off, and we can't wait. We can't wait to start thinking about these things. It has to be done now. It's not an option. So for me, thinking about how we build an inclusive tech future and what that looks like, we're addressing these things and thinking about and doing our due diligence to address issues on the front end before they actually arise.
Yes, yes, thank you. Let's move on to Dr. Patrice.
I'm just soaking it all and I'm learning from Leah and Joanne on this call. This is good. I gotta concur with what Leah is saying. And for me, and I think for an organization like BGC, it's building the space and the opportunity for those who have been historically disadvantaged or disenfranchised, the space to build and to innovate. Because the way you think about the big hair or braids, or the way you think about the lighting on our darker skin tones, you have to have a person of color in the room. And are we giving people that look like us space to innovate and to create? And so I think we have been ostracized from a lot of different industries. And I think we're in this intersection where technology really needs to consider how they support and invite Black folks in, right? So we think about, we are the answer to our issues, right? Like you think about the gentleman who created the Cop Stop app, right? So we know that technology can be a solution for social issues, but the only way we do that is if we allow us to be the folks that are doing that. And I think not only do we need to be supported with mentorship, but we got to give us the money. Can I just flat out say, I want all the money. And shout out to the CEO, Sophia, because I always say to her, just give me the money, right? I'm always asking for the money. And I think it is true for Black creators and Black founders and Black folks who are being innovative and creating apps and experiencing technology in new ways. They need the money and the resources to build. We need the same resources good brother Mark Zuckerberg had. I want the same resource, okay? So I think that is how we become more inclusive. We need the space to create, and we need the money and the resources to create.
Yes, yes. Last but not least, let's move on. Keep the conversation going. Let's add some more value. Joanne.
Okay, yeah, and pretty much Leah and Patrice have, said it and described it. The only additional thing that I can add is volunteerism, and Patrice mentioned mentorship, of course. So, and that is a big thing that I truly believe in, and I do. And in order for various organizations, you have to be in the room, as Patrice mentioned, that's very key. So we've got to be there. And I know it can be hard sometimes, if you're the only one in the room, but you have to continue, being a part of back to what I said earlier, you got to be a part of the solution, not just, identifying problems. So that's the only way is we just got to make room, find a space, find a chair, somewhere in the room, in whatever organization within your company, wherever you can, in order, to be included and to be sure that we're all, especially Black women, are included.
Can I make one addition before we move on to the next question?
Of course.
Thanks, Samantha. So in terms of career opportunities and thinking about different ways to address this question. So as Samantha teed up for this question in particular, the technological ecosystem is made up of many different components. And so there are opportunities in all of those different areas, whether it be the educational sector, the nonprofit sector, the entrepreneurial sector. So think about from which angle you would like to contribute. And then also think about going into the policy space. So in order to make sure we're equally dividing those resources and giving access to resources like Dr. Patrice mentioned, we have to make sure that we have the right folks in those policy rooms and on the Hill and in different governmental spaces to be the voice and to advocate to make sure that our communities are represented, and we're making sure that there's equitable access for example, for computer science programs, funding for computer science programs in public school systems in historically marginalized communities, access to different resources for entrepreneurs, et cetera.
Yes, yes, so true. Let's keep the conversation going and let's talk about challenges and realities. Let's delve into a little bit the current challenges and how we can disrupt these systems of oppression. So with this first question, so the effects of tech innovation are immeasurable. It significantly impacts our democracy, our economy, our society. Yet, not all communities are benefiting equally from this innovation. We recently saw during this pandemic, which spotlighted the stark economic, health, education inequities. Uh, virtual learning, for instance, we saw instances where some communities had to, I don't know, go to local open areas just to find Wi-Fi, just to be able to be a part of the shift in learning. We saw that a lot of infrastructures in cities didn't have anything available to make sure that all the students could equitably access anything, whether it's technology, whether the hardware at home to the broader technology that they needed to connect with. What does it look like to innovate with accessibility and equity in mind? What steps can we take to intentionally center historically disadvantaged communities? And we're going to start off with Dr. Patrice Johnson on that one.
So I love this question. And I think what Leah has led us to in her last response definitely talks about it. And I love that response, Leah. I would say what gives me pause is the infrastructure. Even if you look at the last week, Jackson ain't got no water. Here in Detroit, we had power outage for about 4 days. So how can we say that we can equitably allow people to engage in technology when our infrastructure, we are still like living in 1945 in some of our community? We talk about basic water right now. We ain't even talking about, we ain't even talking about Wi-Fi. Can I get good water? Can I get lights, right? So that's what right now kind of gives me pause to think that our infrastructure, primarily in urban communities, has not been addressed. So you're right in saying the pandemic just exposed to the larger community these grave disadvantages, right? Where kids who are in urban cores don't have iPads and laptops. Like when you go to, for example, in Detroit, it's West Bloomfield, they already had MacBooks at home. In fact, their parents had to buy the MacBook for them to start the class, right? That was pre-pandemic. So we are already gravely behind, right? So I think my vision, or what I would love to see, is can we start utilizing technology to give me the basic things right now? I don't think folks in Jackson, Mississippi really care about me giving them an iPad so that they can code or they can hack. They need water. And that's what just gives me great pause, because it's not just Jackson, it was Flint 10 years ago. So I don't know if I can adequately answer that question, Samantha, because I think the way I feel, if I'm being authentic right now, is I'm angry that my folks ain't got basic stuff. So how can we innovate when the best creators don't even have water right now? And you're gonna have to tag Leah and Joanne. I can't even answer that.
No, yeah, points were made.
Yeah. Well, I can jump in with something that we're doing, at least with an idea, Patrice, but it's so interesting. It's following you because I'm from Mississippi. My family is in Jackson. So definitely, they've been impacted, by the water situation, just as, across there, others are impacted as well. But one thing, and I think I mentioned earlier that I'm working on a team called Call for Code. And so it's not IBM alone, it's partnership with other companies. Everybody needs to jump in and work on solutions. But with our Call for Code, that is the overall idea. It's open source, working on some open source solutions. And that's pulling in, like I said, experienced, technologists, designers, people from global, all over the world to work on some of those solutions. And ironically, for this year, the theme is sustainability. So that really, dives into the, the water, issues, the disparities, education gaps. I would say, back to answer, I think at the top of the question, Leah had already covered it too. I mean, it's going to take legislative changes, policy changes to really make a difference. But I will say, I mean, the technology is there, just the base technology. I mean, you got the software, you got the hardware, but it just takes a lot of us. It's going to take everyone to really, I think, impact, the main issue. I'm with you. I get very angry as well, because it's like, yes, we're doing things and, others are doing things, but the problems still remain, and you just can't affect it for everyone all at the same time. It's moving, too slowly for sure. But together we can start making some impact. Leah.
That's great. I totally agree. I've also been thinking a lot about Jackson and what I can do to play my role to support the communities there. And it really just gets to the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? So if your very foundational needs as an individual are not being met, as a community are not being met, how can you get to that point of living in this ideal state where you can be your most creative, your most innovative, if you don't have the basic necessities for life? So that is something that we definitely need to think about. But I will also say the other side of that is, when things like this have happened, people have come up with creative ideas of how do we filter the water to, make it drinkable, and different technologies that have come about as a result of kind of these very impactful and devastating scenarios. So, I think we all are thinking through kind of what we can do to support and thinking through what new innovations might different scenarios spark.
I would add, if that's okay, Samantha, I would add that one of the beautiful components of the work that we're doing is when you get, for summer camp, for example, 50 girls in a room, and they have that space again to create. And we had a hackathon this year too. It's a beautiful experience. It's the impact is it will floor you, right? Because all of a sudden, Black girls are forming their own community. They're centering themselves around joy, and they're creating these amazing apps that can solve real issues, right? So I would say, although, and I love your theoretical component, Leah, with Maslow's hierarchy of need, but I think although it does look dire, there are moments of hope, right, that we can hold on to. And for me, I can reflect on those girls being at camp and the smiles on their faces and the way that they light up when they figured out how to do some stuff that I can't do. Our education team, they try to teach us how to code this art last week, and I had a stick figure, right, where our girls were creating these beautiful art images. And so there is space for us to hope, right? But I think we've got to put some pressure on the entire ecosystem, from the legislators to these big companies, to say, we got to do some grassroots basic stuff.
Yeah, so very true. I think you've kind of answered this, but we did have a question from the audience. As someone who's breaking through barriers, that's why it is so hard to get into the sector. How does one find a breakthrough?
I think that this is going towards a breakthrough into career opportunities. I believe that's what this is speaking towards. So I'll answer it from that lens. For me, and it is not easy. We know that things can often be more difficult for people who look like us, even when we have the same credentials. My strategy, I'll speak to my personal experience and my personal strategy. My personal experience, I've really honed in on something actually that Joanne mentioned earlier, was being a constant learner. How can I make sure that I am continuing to increase my hard skills, my soft skills, right? So hard skills for this particular group would be things like making sure you're learning new coding languages if you can, continuing to, improve your skills. Those technical skills are so valuable in the industry. Maybe it's studying project management, getting a project management certification, thinking and studying user-centered design, user experiences, design thinking, those types of credentials. Soft skills like public speaking, writing, different things, relationship building, also networking and mentoring. When we talked about mentoring earlier, networking and building mutually beneficial relationships, making sure that you're building relationships that aren't just meant to be transactional and seeking to get something out of it, but also what can you give to the relationship? How can it be something that's long-term where you can support one another, whether that's a peer or maybe that's someone who is more experienced than you or has more knowledge. So for me, those have been ways that I have tried to continue to build on my resume, but also open different doors to opportunities and break down some of those barriers.
Anyone would like to add?
Well, I think Leah has covered it, but I mean, attending events like this, networking, it's all about continuous learning, as Leah mentioned as well. That's the way to, if you're talking about breaking into different industries or just breaking into anything. I will say, technology, it runs the gamut. So, whether it's in education, it's in healthcare, government, technology is everywhere. So it's not really essentially breaking into technology, but you do have to learn, certain skills. If it takes back to being, data scientist, Python or R, learning things like that. So that you just have to start. You got to network, you got to reach out, use all the social media, connections that you can, and just show up, at events, and just ask for help, and it can happen.
Thank you. And also join those digital communities, whether they're on Facebook or elsewhere. There are a lot of opportunities that are presented. There are a lot of people that are willing to crowd source resources, answer your questions, just support you in any way. I know I've been in online communities like Sister Circle Black Women in Tech, where someone says, I've just lost my job, or I'm having this issue, or I'm navigating this difficult conversation with my boss, and folks are willing to share their expertise, their experiences, their connections. So I think being in community can be a major way in which we break through these barriers. Let's keep it going. Next question. A reality of tech is that it can be used for good or bad. We've seen tech amplify social justice movements and help us utilize our collective agency via social media. We've also seen how racial and algorithmic biases in tech can have negatively impacted specific communities via surveillance or facial recognition software, and even in ways we're employed. As we work toward innovation, how can future innovators intentionally keep the moral and ethical consequences of tech at the forefront of their work, whether it's government regulation or accountability policies? Let's start with you, Joanne.
Okay, not to sound like a repeated record, or broken record, but I think Leah covered it, already, and we've talked about it. It's essentially you have to be in the room. You need to be part of the solution. I would say one key thing is taking the initiative to understand kind of see through the lens of those in disadvantaged areas or economically disadvantaged. That is going to be key in order to really make a difference and understand how to utilize the technology. So technology can, as you said, it can be used for good, for bad, but it's used for good mostly. So, but awareness is very key about like, what is it really doing? What are the intended, outcome? And I know, especially when you start talking about, AI, artificial intelligence, I think that gets some people a little bit afraid, because it's like, okay, the, robots are going to take over or whatever. But, behind those computers, behind the robots, there are humans. So that's why it's very important that you have a diverse, set of people in the room that's working on solutions. And so if there's an opportunity for you to be a product manager, that is very, very key, because you can really provide a lot of input in how that product is going to, be developed and how it will eventually, be deployed. So I would say that's key. We do, of course, need more, diverse people at the top, because those are the ones that are making the decisions. But so just continue back to learning, figuring out, the various angles where you can be in the room or, at the table, even if you're not at the table, once again, just somewhere, but making a contribution, to the solution. That I think that's one of the key things.
That I think what Joanne just said is so powerful, because she gave us, I will say this, what we've seen with technology over the last 10 years, the ability to utilize social media as a form of activism, right? I believe that a couple of days after George Floyd was murdered, there was like 8 million tweets that used the hashtag Black Lives Matter, right? So to be able to utilize social media in a way that can galvanize folks and build a communication system across the globe, right, is immensely powerful. I mean, you think if they would have had that in 68, right? I think my hope has been, how do you take that massive engagement and shift it from the social space to actual material change? And I think what Joanne just said is exactly that. I think she's saying for us to really utilize technology as a solution to some of the social experiences that we have, how do we put our folks in a position like a product manager that could tell Apple, don't you put out that phone, and good and well, the facial recognition is biased, right? It does not adequately see my skin tone, and or you have these new vehicles that are supposed to be self-driving, and you hidden Black folks, right? Because you don't recognize us. And I'm smiling, but it's also, it's not, so I love the fact that connecting both what Leah and Joanne is saying, they are really diving onto solutions, right? Which I adore. So how do we move from that the massive way we can benefit from technology in the social space and engaging socially, to the material change and using technology as a solution for an app like CopStop, or identifying, as Leah said, proactively the ways tech can potentially be biased, but solving those problems by having the right people in the spaces to make those decisions.
I totally agree. I was going to mention product management. I'm so glad that both of you already brought it up. I think particularly in this room that especially curated for Black women and girls, it's important that we think about these types of careers where, yes, we are underrepresented. However, we bring a unique lens and unique experience to these types of roles, right? For a product manager or a technical program manager, for example. So in these types of positions, you have a significant level of influence over the entire product development process from start to finish, right? You have the skill set to be able to understand and speak the language of the engineers and the technical folks working on the product, while also translating for the people in the business who are driving towards the, you know, the business goals, right? And you're the person who bridges that gap and makes sure that along the way, the right questions are being asked. You know, you're considering for all of the different factors that need to come into account. And as Black women, we have a unique lens through which we look at the world, right? And so, and you know, we have that in common, but we also have unique experiences, right? So what are your unique experiences that allow you to think about how different people might engage with a product, and ensuring that you can be a voice in the room that say, we need to diversify the data set and make sure we're including more users who of X background, right? And making sure that all of that is considered along the way. So definitely do consider careers in either, you know, technical program management or product management, because as having that Black Girls Code technical foundation is a great differentiator. Even if you don't desire to be an engineer, there are other opportunities and career paths that will allow you to still utilize that skill set and you know, kind of differentiate you amongst the applicant pool for such roles.
Yes, yes. Also, if anyone's interested in kind of learning more about this topic, I'm in the middle of reading Race After Technology by Ruha Benjamin, where they discuss abolitionist tools for the new Jim Code. And it goes into historical context, current realities, and future outlook. There's a lot of really good information in there that we can kind of equip ourselves to come to these tables and talk about these things, utilizing broader data, research, and just knowing the language to use as we discuss these things, because these are age-old issues that are now connected to far-reaching technologies. So there's a lot of work to be done, and I think all of us equipping ourselves, being aware and not being afraid to adjust these topics in any place in which we hold any amount of power or influence is important. And the name of the book, again, because someone just asked, is Race After Technology by Ruha, R-U-H-A, Benjamin. All right, so let's keep the conversation moving. Let's talk about the progress and call to action. Circling back on your journey, how have you seen progress in your sector? What legacies will young innovators be building on? And let's start with Leah.
Sure. I think when I think about the legacy, we've already touched on the fact that none of this is new. Our ancestors were extremely innovative and creative people, and we are products of their genius. And keeping that in mind is one of the things that keeps me going. There's a concept, an African concept of Sankofa, you know, understanding the past so that you can best forward and drive towards the future. Knowing our history and the shoulders upon which we stand is really important. And also it keeps me going, because this work is hard, right? If you choose to actually take a stand and be a person who wants to speak up and be that agent of change, it can be challenging. So along the way, it's really important that we take care of ourselves, right? Make sure that we're pouring into ourselves, and that if we're not, you know, prioritizing our wellness physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, we can't do this work. And so I really try to hone in on that. Folks like Dr. Benjamin, who Samantha mentioned, there are just so many folks who are continuing to drive this work forward. continue to study and read those books and think about, Dr. Charlton McElwain has a book who talks about the Black history in technology. You have to forgive me because I don't remember the name of the book, but if you look up Dr. Charlton McElwain, it will come up. But just keep that in mind, and that's something that keeps me grounded and keeps me going along this journey. So that legacy is very much important.
I think for me, looking at the progress in the sector and what legacies we think young people will build on, I go back to my experience with the girls over this summer. We had technically 6 summer camps that I jokingly tell the team, we were in it. We don't know what happened with the rest of the world for those 5 camps, 5-6 camps. But I will tell you, even though we might have been physically tired, we were emotionally full because we could see firsthand, after not having in-person camps for 2 years or so because of COVID, you can see the way when a young lady gets it, right? When she's figured it out, when she is able to create something. I mean, we had girls at the Atlanta camp during lunchtime doing races with each other. So I would say when we talk about their ability to innovate and the legacy is really about whole person development. It is not only about the technology, it is also about experiencing joy. It is about their leadership journey, right? It is about community. And then lastly, as we like to say, it's also about economic mobility, right? And changing our material reality. So for me, that's what I see as the legacy of us continuing to encourage the girls that are on this call, watching this session, the 5,000, 10,000 girls that we'll reach in a year, those girls being able to form community where they feel safe, to create, to experience their joy, and to have the life that they want to live.
And I'll just finish up. Leah and Patrice, have pretty much covered it as well. Once again, continuous learning. I would say the advent of there's so many ways of getting upskilled, getting educated, getting certifications, getting badges, just learn. There's, I don't want to advertise for different companies, but, like Coursera courses, a lot of free courses, just a lot of online courses. IBM, by the way, actually has a platform as well where continuous learning. So definitely take advantage of all of those, opportunities. I think that is something that has progressed, especially during my career. I mean, just so easy to learn. I mean, we have a lot of internal learning, but there are multiple external vehicles to learn from. So I would say just encourage just to continue continuous learning, because that is going to be key to the future for the future innovators. The other thing is, wherever you are, if you are working, or when you do start working, there are various groups. I think Leah touched on some. There are different groups within companies, the affinity groups or the business resource groups. That is very, very key. That wasn't available many years ago. So utilize those, vehicles, to continue to innovate and learn as well. I think that's the only additional thing I can say.
I'll just add one last thing in terms of progress. I do think that we have made tremendous progress. Even this is a very nascent space still when you think about inclusive technology or equitable technology and conversations and resources around this. And so I think that there is tremendous opportunity to continue building and only amplify the work that has already been done. So, but I did want to just circle back and acknowledge that I do think that particularly in the last maybe 5 or 10 years, there's been a lot of evolution, growth, and progress. And, you know, as Joanne mentioned, that continuous learning allows you to kind of stay abreast and on the front curve of this ever evolving, still growing and nascent space that we're in.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, because technology, as they say, you know, it doesn't stand still, you know, so it's continuing to evolve.
Yes, I'd have to agree. I would think what's so beautiful is when you see just folks finding each other because they've been able to use different technology, different platforms, social media, to find corners of the internet with people that they can relate to on multiple levels and start building together. So in the way that these inequalities, the systemic issues exist, you see so many individuals or even smaller collective groups having even greater impact for their communities because they can leverage these technologies, they can leverage these tools, they can self-educate, they can mobilize, they can immediately respond, they can get to the heart of these issues and have the conversation. You don't need to feel alone. You don't need to wonder if you're the only one thinking or wanting or creating. You can find someone to create with across the street or across the world. And as many issues as there are in this world, there's individual minds with a willingness to try to tackle them, no matter how niched or how broad that is. So like, as we talk about progress and call to action, a big part of what we're seeing now and what we saw during the pandemic and we've seen in recent social justice movements is people being able to self-identify, mobilize, and do the work wherever they are. And that makes it more inclusive, that makes it more fast acting. And that is something that I think will continue to be a powerful tool for further generations, even as you get into the metaverse, even as you think about how you're going to operationalize future technology. So taking your seat at whatever table you can create, not necessarily always having to try to fight for a seat at someone else's table. So let's keep the conversation going. What opportunities, roles exist that to affect change in the tech space? What should young STEMists be doing now to build their way towards these impactful roles, and what resources have been helpful in your journey?
Yeah, I'll jump in. I think we've touched on a lot of different areas of opportunity in the space, whether that be in the private sector, in product, technical program management, project management, user experience design, engineering. There are so many ways to address it in the private sector. In the public sector, there are opportunities at all levels of government, whether that, and I know I mentioned the Hill earlier, but I would be remiss not to mention the importance of state and local government as well, in ensuring access and advocacy, and access to resources for marginalized communities. The opportunities are endless. So it's really a matter of carving out the space and figuring out what area you want to tackle, and also recognizing that you can change. So I have done so many different things over the course of my relatively short career already, because I've been trying to figure out and ask that question of which way is the best path to address these very critical questions. Is it through the government? Is it through policy in the nonprofit sector? Is it actually being at the table or trying to pull up my own chair at the table in the private sector and in big tech? So, you know, think about what you might want to do. And that breadth of experience also is very much a selling point when you come into any of those spaces, being able to say, well, I've thought about it from this angle and I have experience that I can bring to the table from each of those different areas. That's really important. And that continuous learning journey definitely helps along the way with that.
Yeah, and that very well said, Leah. And I'll just add, because I know we talked about, you know, product management, project management, but any of those areas, you know, should be a focus, data analyst, just wherever you feel comfortable. And then from an industry, as Leah, I mean, even though I've been with IBM, but within there, I've had opportunity to be exposed to various industries within IBM. So, you know, government, healthcare, one of my favorites, and you know, healthcare, there are so many changes are so there's plenty of opportunity for some innovation there with regard to healthcare, just as with others, but government, insurance, banking. I mean, there are lots of industries in which you can apply, those skills. So I would say definitely just, pick up the key skills. I mean, Leah had started off earlier saying, so you got the hard skills, but, the soft skills, talk with, get an opportunity or learn to work with clients and partners and, even within your community. As I mentioned, very big on volunteering. So that is a way to get involved with your schools. I mean, that definitely, they would really love you to go in and just talk. You can learn a lot from the kids and from the teachers, find out what they need help with as well. So just pick up the hard skills and, definitely focus on the soft skills and you'll be fine.
And I would say, to wrap it up, BGC alumni, you got a portal that we have launched that will have tons of resources for you to dive into. You have a team dedicated to servicing you and helping you identify any of the tools that you might need. And so I would just say a action item for you is to stay connected to BGC as a community that wants you to do well and wants you to reach your full potential. That is the action item that I think STEMinists should pursue to allow us to continue to engage with you so that we can help you get to the next level. That's what we're here for.
Yes, yes, yes. Now, that brings our conversation to a close, but you can continue the conversation online, and you can also reach out to us. If you ladies will, could you please maybe share in the chat or out loud where we can stay connected with you, if it's via social media or if it's via LinkedIn? Let us know what that looks like. And also, let's start thinking about the ways in which we can individually start impacting this change, start moving the dial forward, start doing the important work.
I'll jump in. I'll first say thank you, Samantha, for being a great moderator and curator for this conversation. Thank you to the Black Girls Code team for organizing the Alumnae Summit and for having us today to share and hold community with one another. You can find me on LinkedIn. It's Leah Castleberry. You can also follow me on Twitter at @LevelUpLeah.
I've dropped my information in the chat and I am available whenever needed.
And I was doing the same thing. I just put the link to the website that I've been mentioning so much, so callforcode.org. Hopefully everybody will go there, but I'm on Twitter and then LinkedIn as well, and I'll post it in there, but it's Joanne HH on LinkedIn. So looking forward to hearing from everyone. Thanks, Samantha. Thanks, Leah. Thanks, Patrice, for this great session.
Thank you, everyone. Let's keep the conversation going and stay a little longer for a few closing remarks.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lauren.
And my name is Suhaili.
And we are honored to serve on the alumni engagement team. We will first want to thank all of our amazing speakers for sharing their stories and their knowledge with us over the past 2 days. And then we also want to express gratitude to you all for attending our BGC Annual Alumni Summit. We're grateful to be able to bring such rich programming to young Black women, not only across the country, but across the world. Shout out to our South Africa chapter. I just want to double down on what all of these ladies have been saying about the importance of continuous learning and building up these skills. So shout out to you all for prioritizing yourself and being in this space of learning and really pouring into yourself, because that is the goal of the alumni engagement team here. And we have so much more in store for you all, from mentoring and internship opportunities to career readiness and workshops.
And as part of our academic pillar, we're excited to offer more scholarships to alumni for career and academic development. We recently awarded $5,000 scholarships, courtesy of What If Media, to 2 BGC alumni. Yes, that deserves a good round of applause. We awarded them to 2 BGC alumni, Sydney Brown, a freshman at Delaware State University, and a Detroit chapter alum. and also to Kristen Palmer, a senior at MIT and New York City chapter alum. We'll be awarding student scholarships for BGC alumni to attend Afrotech this coming November. So we are really excited about that. So be on the lookout for the application, which is coming soon. And if you are a BGC alum between the ages of 17 to 25, make sure you join the alumni portal to stay in the loop on future events and opportunities. You can access our portal through our website, wearebgc.org, and heading to the alumni page. That is super important. Stay connected.
And finally, please, please, please complete your summit surveys. We've heard so many amazing topics over the past 2 days. And if that has sparked an interest in you, whether it's, I want to really work on those soft skills of networking, or I want to work on those soft skills of public speaking, let us know in the survey and we will bring those workshops to you, because we are here for you. And we are super excited to bring this summit back in person next year. So tell us what you enjoyed about it. Tell us what you want to see more of. We really want to make sure that we are serving you all in the best way possible. Plus, there are codes at the end of these surveys. So get those code words, get those points, and win those prizes. Don't forget to add your code words to the gamification tab on your left and fill out the surveys down below. They are bright red links. You can't miss them. And we are, again, thank you so much for coming, and we hope that you enjoy the rest of your weekend.
And I hope we keep the conversation going online. So definitely reach out if there's anything you have any more questions on. Let's talk about it. And I'll talk about it on the alumni portal as well. I'm on there for LA chapter. If anyone's in the LA area that I can support, let me know.
Thank you, everyone.